Thank you very much, Lord Coe, for joining us on the program. First of all, sir, how have you and the rest of the staff at World Athletics been keeping through this global COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, in very challenging times, we've been keeping well and safe and secure. And I've told all our teams that has to be their number one priority, to look after themselves and their families. 60% of our teams have been furloughed, but we have managed to keep them all on the full basic salary. And they've been very busy and working hard. And not just working hard to manage our way through a very difficult situation, but also to think about what our sport will look like when we come into the post-pandemic world.
In terms of the overall impact of the pandemic from a financial perspective, how has it been on your organization, you would say?
It's been tough, but it's been tough on everybody. It's been tough on other sports, and it's been tough on other sectors of our global economy. Nobody has been untouched by this. It has meant that we have really refocused our attention on our financial management, on robust, prudent management in the last few weeks. And we've done that simply because we are the custodians of grant aid that we then distribute to our member federations in order to help deliver and develop our sport. And so really we want to make sure that we, above all, as an international federation and as a headquarters, do everything we can to protect our member federations as well.
In terms of that grant aid to the member federations, I know that the Olympic postponement has had a severe financial impact on many national associations and global associations. And I saw recently where you were in negotiations with the IOC to get a portion of the revenues that would have been due to World Athletics from the postponed Olympics. How have those negotiations been coming on?
They're continuing and they're respectful, and we have a very good relationship with the International Olympic Committee. Our teams at every level work extremely well, and the IOC recognises, actually in its statements it made yesterday after the executive board, that this has hit the international federations hard, that we are grateful, but we are also reliant on the share of broadcast revenue that comes our way every 4 years from the Olympic Games. And that without that, it poses some problems. We are managing our way through that, but I think the IOC also recognises that the international federations have a key role to play in that landscape. And at the moment, without any Olympic Games, the broadcast revenues will inevitably be delayed, and that will pose a challenge on the cash flow of many federations, including our own.
So how confident are you then, sir, that you will get a disbursement from the IOC in due course?
Well, I hope that we make a strong case for why we do need some support, as I'm sure the other international federations will be making the same case. And as I said, the conversations are very respectful and they're very cordial, and we continue in that vein.
Still on the subject of finances, let's switch the focus now to the Athletes Relief Fund for athletes who are normally on the circuit and are experiencing severe financial difficulties at this time. And I noticed World Athletics and the International Athletics Foundation launched a fund recently with US $500,000. Applications are being accepted now through the 6 national area associations. How is that process going?
We launched it today. When I say we launched it, we went public with the criteria that we have settled upon. I created a working group, and on that working group are representatives from the NACAC, the Caribbean region. And it was really important that we recognize that some, not all, but some of our athletes have been hit hard by the pandemic. They've lost their competitions, they've lost prize money, they've also maybe been put in a precarious position with contracts and even maybe bonuses from World Championships. We haven't set out to replace every dollar of prize money that they've lost. We are identifying those athletes that we think are are most at risk, and those that really are in need of basic support. And in simple terms, it's a roof, it's food, it's clothing. We're not a wealthy sport, and we're not football. We don't have limitless sums of money, but I think it was important that we created the fund. And now, as you've said, we've agreed the criteria, and we need to make sure that we target those athletes that are most in need.
Tell us, sir, a little more about the criteria and how the process will work specifically in terms of when and how much will be dispersed and to how many athletes, for example, and how the applications will be assessed.
Well, the applications are going to be assessed from this point on as we receive those applications. The criteria, give you an example, we're not going to entertain athletes that are in the top 6 in the world. We're not going to entertain athletes that have reached a certain point in prize money. We will exclude athletes that already have welfare systems in place, whether it's through their national Olympic committees, their member federations, or even government, national lotteries, subventions. We do really want to make sure that we're targeting those athletes that are going to be, with every expectation, competing in Tokyo, those that clearly have qualification already, but those that will qualify through entry standard. And we will make sure target those most in need. One of the other criteria is that nobody or no athlete should have ever served or be currently serving a ban for a doping violation.
I read recently where you said you were in touch with several athletes around the globe. How soon, what sort of feedback are you getting from them, and how soon should they expect these payments?
A very good question, both of them. First of all, I'm in touch with the athletes all the time. We've spoken at great length to the Athletes Commission, a member of that Athletes Commission, Katerina Stefanidis, the great, the Olympic champion and the great Greek pole vaulter. She's joined the working group and she's helped create the criteria. And we want to make sure that those athletes that we are targeting are most in need, but we also recognize that that need is immediate. So we don't want this to become bureaucratically burdensome. So we are planning to get some support into the hands of the athletes by the beginning of June.
Oh, wonderful. We hear so much about the new norm arising out of this COVID-19 pandemic, sir. Even Zoom, we're linking you, and now meetings are taking place. Several organizations have their staff operating remotely. What are some of the lessons World Athletics has learned from this going forward as far as your modus operandi is concerned?
I think we've learned a lot. Look, they always say, it's slightly cliched, but I think it's probably a truism all the same, never let a good crisis go to waste. I don't think we would have, any of us, chosen to be where we are. And these are traumatic, dark days for many communities. Many communities have lost loved ones. But it has also given us an opportunity to do 2 or 3 things. Firstly, to pause for breath. It doesn't appear that way, given some of the decision-fueled exercises that we've been on, with choosing different dates for championships and making sure that they all blend, and all those considerations, getting the athletes back into competition. But it has allowed some of our teams to think about what our sport looks like post-pandemic, thinking about focusing on some of the big issues that we need to tackle, about giving more young people the opportunity to access sport and fitness. Athletics is uniquely placed to do that. We want to see more physical education and more athletics-based physical education in schools. Mm-hmm. Jamaica, of course, is a template for very, very good practice in that you have a very comprehensive framework for schools activity and schools athletics. That is in large part, I think, why you have been so successful in the last decades, that your school sport is really important. But I think we've also learned that with this technology that brings you and I together today, there are ways of operating smarter and more cost effectively, and also keeping ourselves more in contact with each other. I don't want to ever see a world where we lose that human interactivity. I certainly don't want to witness a world where I'm not able to come and visit friends in Jamaica and have discussions with federations and sports ministers. But I do think we can recognize that if we have an eye on the planet, if we have an eye on sustainability and we have a 10-year strategy, that it's probably better to live to those words and those documents rather than sort of ignoring it once the post-pandemic world is out of the way. I've told our teams at World Athletics, don't ever expect me to sign off on 8 people flying 8 time zones to present to us for 45 minutes, to have supper and then to fly back the following day. That cannot make any sense any longer. So I think there are things that we have learned going forward. I want athletics to be a campaigning sport. It's very clear to me that 2 big issues are front and center in all of the minds of our communities at the moment. One is about climate change and the environment that we live in and we want our grandchildren to live in. The other is that there is no doubt at all in a post-pandemic world, we need to give more people access to sport and activity. The one thing we've noticed in pandemic and in lockdown is that people have been very creative about how they've chosen to exercise. A lot of them have decided to run, which is a good thing. And we need to build on that. But we also need to really be on the side of the argument that says that communities that are fitter and healthier, that have boosted immune systems through physical activity, are the communities that are going to come through these shock waves in future. And this will not be the only shock wave in years to come. So athletics is uniquely placed to help in that as well.
Okay, sir, I'm going to ask you to just hold for a short while. We take a quick break and we'll be right back with you.